Hi, this is Mehl-Madrona, and welcome to our program for physicians to learn, or other health practitioners as well, to learn about the medicine required for helping people in North American indigenous ceremonies. We begin with a picture from the 19th century of a one-man Sundance, which was actually performed in the 19th century. And of course, it's evolved substantially since then, and will move toward the Sundance as the hour progresses. But I want to begin by saying that this is my take on ceremonial medicine. This is the book that I wrote about my own experiences of trying to integrate indigenous culture with mainstream medicine. And I talk, of course, about the power of ceremony, the power of community, the importance of spirituality. And in indigenous worlds, we typically begin by situating ourselves. So I'd like to do that. I began in Mount Vernon, Kentucky. And this is where it's located. You can see that our county, Rockcastle County, borders Tennessee. This is Lake Cumberland, the closest lake to where I was born. This is the Cumberland River, where I learned to fish. And these are Cherokee roots. This is my mother's side. My mother's side were a combination of Cherokee and Gads from Scotland, which I recently learned actually came from Scandinavia and were imported by the Gordons in Aberdeenshire because they were lance-wielding horse warriors. Eventually, when peace was declared, they became a subclan of the Gordons. So I know from doing my DNA that I'm half North American, a quarter Scandinavian, and a quarter Greek. But more on that later. But the Cherokee are my people on my mother's side, and this is a typical Cherokee homestead. You can see the kinds of dwellings that Cherokee people produced, very much different from the Plains cultures and from the New England cultures. This is a mural depicting Cherokee life and culture from the Cherokee Nation Museum in Cherokee, North Carolina. So again, headdresses, style of life, dwellings, very different from other cultures of North America. Here are 3 Cherokee leaders who visited England in 1730. And this is that same river that I showed you earlier with the 19th century of Cherokee stick fishing. And whenever we talk about Native North America, we have to talk about atrocities, massacres, because there were so many. And of course, for the tribes east of the Mississippi, there was the relocation overseen by Andrew Jackson, but enacted as legislation during the reign of Thomas Jefferson. The legislation stated that there were to be no native people east of the Mississippi River. And so, in the middle of winter, Cherokee people, who were at that time fairly well integrated with the European population and operating their own businesses and printing their own newspaper in the Cherokee language using the alphabet of Sequoia, and running for office, running for government offices in Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. And in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, something that I think Hitler would have been proud of, Cherokee people were rounded up to march to Oklahoma. And you can see the trail went through Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, and into Oklahoma. So, of course, you can find Cherokee people all along the trail because people escaped. And there's a Cherokee tribe in Missouri. There's the Western Band of Cherokee in Oklahoma and the Eastern Band of Cherokee who hid out and didn't go. So it was called the Trail of Tears and Death because almost a third of the people died on the march. This was John Ross, who was the chief of the Cherokee Nation during the Trail of Tears. And it's significant that from a blood quantum perspective, John Ross was 7/8 Scottish. But in the 1830s, genetics hadn't yet been invented. Mendel was still working on his peas and other vegetables. Charles Darwin was still on the Beagle. And the Cherokee were a nation and not a race. And you were either 100% Cherokee or 0% Cherokee. There was no such thing as quarter Cherokee, 7/8 Cherokee, because it was a nation. You were either a citizen of the nation or not. And John Ross, who was 7/8 Scottish by blood quantum reckoning, was 100% Cherokee by nation reckoning. This is a painting of one of the Cherokee ceremonies, which is still performed, the Green Corn Dance. And this is a Cherokee summer house, a Cherokee winter house made of stone. And this is a Cherokee bluegrass band playing in Kentucky. And of course, it's always good for the tourists. You can see the headdresses are Plains headdresses and not at all Cherokee headdresses, as I showed in the previous slide what Cherokee headdresses look like. But tourists expect Plains headdresses. So now, as I continue to situate myself, this is where my father came from, Wounded Knee, South Dakota. He and my mother met while he was doing temporary duty in Kentucky at an Air Force base there during the Korean War, and they met at a USO dance. So my father grew up on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. This is the church in Wounded Knee. This is what the land looks like, the prairies around Pine Ridge. And these are buffalo, Tatonka or Pate. The Badlands. Sunset is beautiful in South Dakota, of course. And whenever we talk about the Pine Ridge Agency, we're drawn to Wounded Knee, which is one of the more famous massacres in the United States, though far from the only one. And of course, before we get into Wounded Knee, this is a jingle dance on the Pine Ridge Reservation in 2006 at a powwow. Buffalo munching. And here's the Wounded Knee Memorial. And some pictures of Wounded Knee. And it was a gathering to enact the ghost dance. Now, there were multiple versions of the ghost dance, ranging from a more spiritual version to a more political version that would eliminate the Europeans from North America. But the call for the dance asked people to put down their weapons. This was one of the chiefs at Wounded Knee. Wonderful name, young man afraid of his horses. And picture taken in front of his teepee, January 17th, 1891. Here were some of the participants in the ghost dance, Oglala leaders. And this is where it happened. And over 300 people were killed by the U.S. cavalry, and their bodies frozen in the snow after the massacre. After the battle, the wounded were attended to in the hospital inside the church that I showed you previously. And the dead were buried in mass graves like this. Here they are piled up to be buried. This guy got to walk away from it. This was the traditional healer who was shot. And this is Charles Eastman, or Ohiesa. And Charles Eastman is an incredible character and important as we talk about medicine and indigenous people. Charles Eastman was born February 19th, 1858, and lived a traditional lifestyle for his youth until he was around 14, when his father resurfaced. And everyone had believed his father to be dead, but his father actually had been captured by the U.S. cavalry and put in prison for being an insurrectionist, and was finally released and came home to tell Charles that it was necessary for him to learn the cunning of the white man. So Charles went to school and learned quickly, went to Dartmouth College, went on to Boston University School of Medicine, did his internship in Boston City Hospital, and returned to be the physician for the Pine Ridge Agency. And he was present during the massacre of Wounded Knee, though my understanding is he was out delivering a baby. And prior to Wounded Knee, Charles Eastman had believed that collaboration, assimilation was possible. After Wounded Knee, he became more radicalized and believed that assimilation was wrong and would destroy the Lakota people. Eastman himself, I believe, was Dakota. And of course, he was very political and helped found the Boy Scouts of America and is responsible for the Native American elements in Boy Scouting, the Order of the Arrow, the Webelos, the Mini Vision Quest, and things like that. He wrote a number of books which are marvelous, all of which, I believe all of them, are available as free downloads. It's only necessary to type in Charles Eastman and the books will come up. So this is Adam Beach portraying Charles Eastman in the HBO movie Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Just as a brief respite from all these images of destruction, death, and despair, I thought I would throw in an Inuit painting from 1959. It's a stone cut. Excited man forgets his weapon. Hard to get a bar without a weapon. So let's talk a little bit about Lakota cosmology. And we'll talk about Lakota because Lakota has become the driving type of Sundance and revitalization ceremony that we'll encounter in North America today, though that is ever changing. And we'll compare Lakota cosmology to Inuit cosmology just to get a cross section. So the Lakota worldview places emphasis on the spiritual realm of ancestors, sacred beings, and natural powers, all of whom have kinship bonds. The whole universe is imbued with and intimately related to spirits and spiritual forces that have real power to influence outcomes. And let me say that I belong to a group of researchers who are trying to recreate Lakota philosophy and cosmology as it existed before invasion in its pre-Christianized manner. Therefore, there will be people who disagree with what I have to say. That's natural. In the Lakota cosmology, as I've come to understand it, human beings are not superior to, but equal with other creatures of the earth. Each person is a living testament as well as a collectivity or legacy of his or her ancestors and the spirits of creation. And when we say ancestors, we mean biological, social, spiritual, cultural, geological, and more. There is this concept of wo'onshila, which is the recognition of our pitifulness or condition of neediness as a creature in the world, dependent on all the forces and powers of creation all around us, and that we are an intimate part of the natural world and not separate from it. This is Albert Whitehead Sr.'s definition, who's a very respected elder at Sintaglushka University. And it's that the idea that the non-material or the transpersonal reality is the source of power and health. Spirit helpers give people the power to treat and conduct ceremonies. And these spirit helpers can give quite specific instructions and work through the human healer. So the human healer is accountable to these spirits for everything. These spirits are the force, power, and source of help and healing for all practices, and they work through the healer. The healing process begins and ends with spiritual powers and influences, and all aspects of life are intimately connected to good health and well-being. Medicine and healing are a coming together of all the elements from the circular pattern of life. The person is an unexplainable creation with at least 4 constituent dimensions. When these dimensions are aligned, we experience wichozani, or harmony and balance. When they are not, we experience tawachikopta, or imbalance. So, we're talking about something very similar to the Chinese concept of qi, the energy that sustains and maintains the physical body. It anchors the energy that is the spiritual body into the physical body. Everything is interconnected. The Naki consists of all those things that influence us, all the stories told about us by all the beings telling them. And of course, one of the elders whom I know, when I explained what neuroscience is discovering, said, "Oh, isn't it lovely that neuroscience is finally catching up to the Lakota?" And neuroscience tells us that we have this narrative circuitry that creates our identities. Lakota tells us via the Nagi that we are a swarm of stories that form us, make us who we are. And of course, we know from stroke studies that without our medial prefrontal cortex, we lose the continuity of identity and become a collection of disconnected vignettes. So Nia is the vital breath which gives life to the body and is responsible for the circulation of the blood and for the breathing process. Nagi is all that one knows. It carries all the beings that one knows and does not know who influenced the person. So these are you might think of them as avatars or representatives within the swarm of all those beings that we've ever encountered. The Nagi is the legacy of one's stored memory. It's our identity narrative. It's what relates to others. It's the collection or swarm of all beings who make and have made and will make us what we are, including all the stories told, being told, and to be told that influence, form, shape, and create us. When the Nagi detaches from the body, it's sometimes called soul loss, translated into English. The Nagila is the divine spirit immanent in each human being. It's something of the sacred that dwells in every human. The Nagila is the self, not self, part of me but not part of me, part of who one is. It's the part of us that participates in the spirit world. It's the reflection of the Nagi. They are in constant interaction and are interrelated. The Shikun is your presence that is felt on something or somebody, the net effect of one's balance of all the dimensions of the self. It's what remains when you leave a room. The best way to experience the Shikun is to go to somebody's home when they're not there and to feel their presence. So we want to talk about Wichozani, or harmony and balance. Health is the net result of harmony and balance in all of our relationships. It is achieved through cultivating wohuableza, or understanding within our relationships, including those with the natural world. Wo'ope designates the natural law of creation, which is interconnectedness, interdependency, and the recognition of our lowly status in creation mythology. And as I mentioned before, Tawachi Kaupta refers to lack of harmony, illness, or imbalance, and it literally means one's head on its side. So Wonia is the physical body that anchors the spiritual body. Nia is the vital breath of the physical body. Shikun is your presence, your impact on others. Nagila is that which arises from interactions with the divine. And of course, Lakota would have an org chart. So we have the Wakan Tonka. These are the sacred beings of the sky. And the Wakan Tonkan consist of the sun, the moon, the stars, the light, the darkness, the clouds, and the thunder spirits. Some say it differently, but that was the way I was taught. The creator is Dakushkashka, or that which moves all that moves. And creator is genderless. We have the Wakasha Wakan. These are the the men who lead the ceremonies, the Wiawakan, the women who lead the ceremonies, the Wichasha Pajuta, the men of the herbs, and the Wia Pajuta, the women of the herbs. We have the elders and the people. So that's Lakota cosmology. And so just for fun, let's look at a different kind of cosmology, just so that we're not accused of being Lakota-centric. In Inuit cosmology, humans are the amalgamation of three types of souls: the name soul, the life breath, which is the souffle vital, and the shadow soul. And each type of soul could be manipulated to cure disease. So the world contains a finite number of souls, which can neither be exhausted nor added to, but which are transferred continually between the young, the old, the dead, the newborns, and in special cases, often associated with healers between species. Animals share in their own finite quantity of souls and the recycling within each species. Even disease, which releases souls through death, has a constant presence in the cosmos, which gravitates from species to species and region to region. Hence, epidemics in one species may coincide with health and abundance in others. The name soul is not reincarnated as much as it is repeatedly introduced into new individuals through the name. Souls and spirit representations of them inhabit an invisible world and can intrude on the present world through possession or dreams. People report more mundane experiences with spirits, usually while out on the land, where they might feel the presence of a spirit and be tormented or played with by the spirit in a way that was not dangerous, but nevertheless frightening. Certain illnesses are attributed to the interaction between souls and spirits of other dimensions with humans in the everyday space-time. Kiermaier identified three types of interactions corresponding to different, although overlapping, discourses on possession: Utulutak, Liarsalik, and Irsalik, which most closely corresponds to Christianized satanic possession. The word Utulutak derives from the root utuk, to try, and together with its stem, it means the one who is tried. An Utulutuk then is a tempter. So Utulutak is an ever-present force in the world which waits for individual weakness from whatever cause and enters the person's existence, changing their behavior. It is an opportunistic spirit of no determined sex or form which tries the person when he or she is vulnerable. Here's an example. A woman was already physically ill and had spent a week in bed. She was weak and barely able to get to the bathroom. While in her room, she first sensed a presence, then felt it and recognized it as Utulutuk and knew it wanted to make her ill in some way and was preventing her from recovering from her original illness. Moving on, the Irsalik Liarsalik possession complex is more specific. Rather than being a formless force or power, the possessing entity manifests itself in a human form, making it a type of spirit possession. Those who are possessed experience auditory or visual hallucinations, among other symptoms. The affected individual, they say, lives a life in another dimension with a mate and possibly even children. And in this dimension, we see unusual behavior as a result of the communication between dimensions. This phenomena is thought to have its origin in an obsessive longing of the affected individual. The person affected begins thinking continually about an idealized mate, who is occasionally someone actually living in the community, but more often is an imagined character. This imaginary person represents everything they desire in a life partner, and they fantasize constantly about life with them. With time, the content of the obsessive thought is recognized by a disembodied soul who then enters it and takes on the characteristics of the desired imaginary person. What was imaginary becomes real, although it exists in another dimension. The individual who has this entity begins to live a second parallel life with this entity. So while the affected person is the only one who can see and communicate with the newly arsalik or the ursalik, in some cases their interactions with the spirit partner can be seen by other people. So their bizarre behavior is a direct result of having another life in an invisible realm. Now I want to talk a little bit about bear medicine as an example of animal totem medicine. And we enter into this by talking about consciousness as an interactive field that co-constructs the world. Bears are considered to be a powerful energetic force integral to co-construction of those who travel between universes. So Hardin wrote about the awakening of the bear. He said, "Grizzly, the sound of their name is enough to pass a charge like electricity through our bones, enough to cast a long and deep shadow across our rapidly shrinking arrogance, illusory sense of omnipotence, and fragile certainty. One glance at a grizz's unmistakable claw marks 8 foot up the side of his scratching tree, and every nerve comes instantly to attention. Every sense is alerted, every light turned on at once in the mortal housing of the soul, enlivened, every cell open-eyed and open-mouthed, every molecule on tiptoes, straining to perceive." So bears are powerful, and there is a bear dance. This is an entertainment, a religious rite, and a method of treating disease all in one. Women could only participate if she was the bear. A den was constructed 200 meters from camp, 2/3 of a meter deep and 2 meters square, with an arbor of boughs with 4 openings for the 4 directions. When the bear man would sing, all the men and boys would gather and dance, and the bear would come out and chase them. Whoever touched the bear without him touching them would overcome a foe in the field. But if one should trip and fall while pursued by the bear, a close relative might die. And Charles Eastman wrote about this particular bear dance ceremony in one of his books. In the Lakota world, there was a bear society, and Thomas Teon talks about it in a wonderful book by Walker called Lakota Belief and Ritual. Bears are Wakan, which means that they're sacred. Mato Wichoyu Wakampiki. This means that this bear they have made it very sacred. They had the Mato Okola Kichiye Keltaku Kuwapiki. This was the Healing Bear Medicine Bear Council. Bear and other healers move about reflecting the ceremony. So bear medicine is a very powerful medicine that heals the most sick. One can become a member of the Bear Society if he or she has been healed from a very bad wound. The head of the society is a person who has dreamed of the bear and received the medicine. The ceremonies happen in a special teepee in which the whole floor is covered with sage. The wounded is placed inside this teepee, plus anyone with the medicine. And there's drumming and singing. medicines are offered so that the wounds can heal. This is a photo of a bear medicine society. So bear medicine is battlefield medicine. And the leader of the society is painted red with hands white and carries a knife. And one of the wounded comes after him, and the bear singers, the bear leader and the wounded one, bend down and move like bears. It's been said that if there is a dog who is sick, the bear leader might immediately tear it to pieces and eat it raw. So this is no wussy stuff. The wounded stand in the four directions and sing the songs and then go back into the teepee. They're placed at the rear of the lodge, and healing roots are applied to their wounds. Bear honoring turns out to be global, including France and Germany. Bears ensured fertility there. A piece of straw bear under your pillow guaranteed fertility. When the Lakota were tricked by Iktomi to leave Middle Earth, it was bear who gave them medicines to survive here, where we are today. There's a Dakota rite of passage called making a bear. Bears are keepers of the dream time. Originally, Bear Butte was bear in the sense of naked, but the Europeans thought of it as bear in the sense of the animal, and the locals picked it up and changed the name from Pahasla to Pahamato. Arctophobia is the fear of bears, which is maybe a good thing to have. In Europe, there were berserkers who wore bearskins instead of uniforms and armor, and were said to be incredible fighters. Roman invaders fled from them in total panic. They were famous for their ability to ignore pain and face unfair odds with uncompromised ferocity. So, bear medicine, strength, wisdom, gentleness, truth, nurturing, gift of herbs, helps you to avoid falling for coyotes' tricks. Healing broken bones, war wounds, hunting accidents, wounds that don't heal. They say a bear medicine woman should have something in her medicine bag to cut with. She should cut inflamed places and places about wounds that are not healing properly. Bear medicine, you can learn it by following the bear in the spring to see what he eats, like bearberry and osha root. The Kwakatul believe that bears are entirely beyond human control. They are spirit beings, so communicating with the bear is communicating with the spirit realm. Among the Ojibwe, when a girl approaches the time of her first moon, she is known as Wimokowe, literally going to be a bear. And during her seclusion, she is known as Mokowe. She is a bear. So, many stories about women becoming bears and bears becoming women. There's a story about a woman going out with other women to collect berries. The other women leave her behind. She tries to get back and gets more lost and is rescued by a young man. He takes her home. She's a captive, but she falls in love with him, and it turns out that it's a family of bears. She becomes a bear and gives birth to a half bear, half man, who is a really good hunter and receives bear medicine, causing the bears to offer humans their medicine to heal the people. But if you ever run into a bear, make sure it knows the story before you approach it. So, among the Tlingit, women Bears hold the spirits of lost, unborn, or stillborn children. They say that Mother Bear gave birth to all the animals. She nursed them and told them what to eat. She nursed them in a moose skin slung between 4 mountains. So here's a skeleton where a bear cub and a child were buried together in Northern California. So they say that women are able to share bodies with the bear, and men can only work with the bear. There's 10 plants attributed to bear medicine, and there's a song for each plant. Bear medicine people must know the song to use for each plant, because the medicine will do no good if the wrong song is sung. So I chose bear medicine just to give you a little sense of the kinds of medicine and the philosophy of medicine that exists and the relationship of medicine with nature. But on a humorous side, this is the Berenstain Bears translated into Lakota. Mato wa'onshila tiwahi. This is the bear who cares for each other family, literally translated. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about medicine bundles. So medicine bundles hold power not because the objects contained in them are powerful, but because the objects contained in them attract spirits to those objects who are powerful. And every so often a medicine bundle gets opened, recharged, used, and otherwise revitalized. So the things that are put in a medicine bundle are things that will draw the spirits related to those objects to come to the bundle. Bundles could include seeds, pine cones, grass, animal teeth or claws, horsehair, rocks, tobacco beads, arrowheads, bones, human remains, carved items, or anything else of relatively small size that could attract spirits. So the contents are considered holy by the community and are only opened under special circumstances and in ceremony. The contents are not meant to touch the ground. And a bundle can be passed down generationally as an inheritance. At our Sundance, there's a women's bundle that is treated in this way. So now we get to the revitalization ceremony, which we'll spend significant time on. It's conducted inside a dome-like structure that you can see. In the old days, it was covered with buffalo skins. They're too expensive now, so we use blankets and tarps. Inipi is the Lakota name. Inipi Kaga is the Inipi ceremony. And the best translation is purification or revitalization ceremony. Here's some pictures of what they look like. We're trying not to use the word sweat lodge anymore because that was a Jesuit descriptive terminology and not appropriate. I have to change that on the slides. I've been counseled by the elders to stop using the term sweat lodge. And we'll be talking more about the Inipikaga because it's challenging in its own way and therefore problematic to people with some types of illnesses. These are the stones that are put in the pit that generate the heat upon which water is poured to generate the steam, which is the breath of life. And behind it are the herbs that are put on the stones. It's a kind of aromatherapy. This is the most sacred mountain of the Lakota, Dakota, Cheyenne, and a number of other people, Bear Butte in South Dakota. And we'll talk a little bit about the sun, who is the most powerful of all the sky spirits and without whom we would not exist. And the Sundance honors the sun. This is the tree for the Sundance, tree of life, the sacred tree. Sundance requires purification, intention. It does involve a trance state and carrying a sacred pipe or chanupa, which is this. Here's a drawing of the Sundance, a Lakota artist. This is a Sundancer from 1892, a drawing. Looks about the same today. Eagle feather fan, which they carry. Chanupa or sacred pipe. The medallion, which is worn around the neck in some dances. This is a Cree arbor now, and it's a little more contained, but again, the tree of life in the center. Here's a wonderful drawing of a Lakota arbor, the willow brush on the outside, the drummers and singers, women dancers, men dancers, and you see everybody wore a skirt in those days. This is a 19th century photo of people sitting around the arbor. This is a Lakota-style arbor after the dance, when everything has been removed. Here's a drawing of a kind of Sundance that one person would put on. Here's another drawing of multi-people, more than one person, piercing. And we'll talk about medical aspects of piercing and dehydration and fasting as we move through this course. These are pictures of some dancers. It's called the Wee Waniwang Wachipi, or they dance while gazing at the sun. And so it comes from a story of a man traveling to the west. Wakanka and Wazia, this is the wise man and the wise woman, offer to help him. He meets a beautiful young woman who takes him to her people, the Buffalo people. They teach him the Sundance. The woman guides them to Buffalo. To continue to receive the buffalo, they must manifest their sincerity by causing their blood to flow from wounds and fulfill their vows by dancing before the sun. It's also called a thirst dance among the Cree. Dancers pledge themselves to suffer and pray for the community over 4 days. By fasting and not drinking, they become spirit and more able to interact with the divine and to recognize the interconnectedness of everything. This is the white buffalo woman who brought the people the chanupa. The red road is considered the road from north to south, or from wisdom to compassion. The 4 directions, or all the directions, are important. There's Wiokpeata, and the man who lives in the west wind, Wikashawan Sabichiacha. There's the north, Waziatakia, and Wikashawan Saichiacha. There's the east, Wiokiampata, with Wikashawan Sanichiacha. The south is Itokagata Kia, with Wikashawanzi Ichiacha. The sky is the Wakantonkan and the earth is the Maha. So these are some of the medicines. Tobacco is used as an offering. Nobody smoked it, or nobody inhaled it, I should say, before the Europeans appeared. If you inhale it, you have to answer the prayers. It's believed to open the door between our world and the spiritual world and carries prayer to the Creator. It's the proper way to ask for a favor. The bigger the favor, the more tobacco. Sage is woman's medicine. It's a masculine plant, but it reduces or eliminates negative energy. And it grows everywhere. Cedar is used for protection and grounding. Most ceremonies include making a protective ring of cedar around the activity circle. Boughs are hung at the entrances of homes. Small leaves are kept in medicine bags and worn daily or put in shoes when extra grounding is needed. Cedar tea is often served during teachings in circles. Strawberries. Strawberry medicine is the medicine of reconciliation. They teach us how to forgive, and they're shared in ceremonies to remind us that life is too short to hold grudges. Sweetgrass is a feminine plant that teaches kindness because it bends without breaking. It's considered to be the hair of Mother Earth. It's used to push out negative energy and attract positive energy. And of course, there's more, but that's all we have time for. I hope this was an interesting introduction to aspects of the culture that we'll be considering further as the course continues. Thank you for listening.